You're live from New Delhi, watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. President Droupadi Murmu hosted a banquet for EU leaders at Rashtrapati Bhavan on Tuesday, expressed confidence in India-EU free trade agreement. Budget session of Indian Parliament to commence today. President Murmu to address joint sitting of members of both the houses. US President Trump said he would de-escalate a little bit in Minneapolis after criticism over the fatal shootings of 2 civilians. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman calls Iranian President Pezeshkian, assures the Gulf Kingdom will not allow its territory to be used for any military action against Iran. And in sports, India series dominance in 4th T20 International against New Zealand in Visakhapatnam. And on to the details now. President Droupadi Murmu hosted a banquet in the honor of President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, and President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, at Rashtrapati Bhavan on Tuesday. The President said that India and Europe are connected not only by contemporary interest, but also by shared values such as democracy, pluralism, and an open market economy. Well, she expressed confidence that the India-EU free trade agreement will bring significant positive changes to the lives of our people. President Murmu said the India-EU security and defence partnership concluded during this visit will open new opportunities for the defence industries as well. The President said that India is keen to further strengthen cooperation with the EU in the fields of clean energy, climate finance and sustainable technologies. Several dignitaries, including Vice President C.P. Radhakrishnan and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, also attended the banquet hosted by the President. Well, earlier, India and European Union on Tuesday exchanged the historic free trade agreement. The deal was concluded following India-EU summit talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi, President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, and President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, in New Delhi. The trade pact, which has been described by both the sides as the mother of all trade deals, will open up the European markets for Indian labour-intensive goods comprising textiles and footwear. Also, at the same time, it will make imported European items cheaper in India by reducing duties, including luxury cars, wine and medicines. Besides, the India and European Union also exchanged several agreements in the fields of security, defence partnership, mobility, disaster risk management and green hydrogen. Also addressing a joint press conference with 2 European leaders after the talks, the Prime Minister said inking of the biggest free trade deal between India and 27-nation European Union will deepen economic ties, create jobs, bolster global supply chains and strengthen the partnership between 2 sides for a prosperous future.
आज भारत ने अपने इतिहास का अब तक का सबसे बड़ा फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट संपन्न किया है। यह एक ऐतिहासिक समझौता हमारे किसानों, हमारे छोटे उद्योगों, इसके यूरोपियन मार्केट तक पहुंच आसान बनाएगा, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में नए अवसर पैदा करेगा और हमारे सर्विसेज सेक्टर के बीच सहयोग को और प्रबल करेगा। यह एफटीए भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन के बीच इन्वेस्टमेंट को बूस्ट करेगा, नई इनोवेशन पार्टनरशिप बनाएगा और वैश्विक स्तर पर सप्लाई चेन को मजबूत करेगा। यानी यह सिर्फ ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट नहीं है, यह साझा समृद्धि का नया ब्लूप्रिंट है।
Well, beyond a conventional trade deal, India-EU Free Trade Agreement concluded on Tuesday represents a comprehensive partnership with strategic dimensions and is one of the most consequential FTA. India-EU Trade Pact covers conventional areas such as trade in goods, services, trade remedies, rules of origin, customs and trade facilitation, as well as emerging areas such as SMEs and digital trade, amongst others. Let's take a look.
Unlocking massive growth potential. Opportunities for 2 billion people. Comprising 25% of global GDP. Unprecedented market access.
A historic milestone was announced at the 16th India-EU Summit on Tuesday by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in New Delhi. The leaders announced the conclusion of the India-European Union Free Trade Agreement. India stands poised to leverage this FTA to create jobs, spur innovation, unlock opportunities across sectors, and enhance its competitiveness on the global stage. Let's have a look at some of them. India has secured unprecedented market access for more than 99% of Indian exports by trade value to the EU. That also bolsters the Make in India initiative. India-EU FTA gives a decisive boost to its labor-intensive sectors such as textiles, apparel, leather, footwear, marine products, gems and jewelry, handicrafts, engineering goods, and automobiles, bringing down tariffs up to 10% on almost $33 billion of exports to zero on entry into force of the agreement. On automobiles, calibrated and carefully crafted quota-based auto liberalization package will not only allow EU automakers to introduce their models in India in higher price brands, but also open the possibilities for Make in India and exports from India in future. Indian consumers to benefit from high-tech products and greater competition. The reciprocal market access in EU market will also open up opportunities for India-made automobiles to access EU market. India's agricultural and processed food sectors are poised for a transformative boost under the India-EU FTA, creating a level playing field for Indian farmers and agrarian enterprises. Key commodities such as tea, coffee, spices, fresh fruits and vegetables, and processed foods will gain enhanced competitiveness, strengthening rural livelihoods, promoting inclusive growth, and reinforcing India's position as a trusted global supplier. India has prudently safeguarded sensitive sectors, including dairy, cereals, poultry, soy meal, certain fruits and vegetables, balancing export growth with domestic priorities. Services being dominant and faster growing part of both economies will trade more in future. Focus on digitally delivered services, ease of mobility will provide boost to India's services exports. India's predictable access to EU's 144 subsectors will provide boost to Indian service providers and enable them to provide competitive world-class Indian services to EU's consumers. On mobility, the India-EU FTA provides a facilitative and predictable framework for business mobility covering short-term, temporary, and business travel in both directions. These enable professionals to travel between the two economies to provide services under different scenarios. India also secured a framework to constructively engage on social security arrangements over a 5-year horizon, together with framework supporting student mobility and post study work opportunities. India EU trade deal, along with India's FTA with the UK and the EFTA, effectively opens up the entire European market for Indian businesses, exporters, and entrepreneurs. Fuzail Ahmed reports for TT India.
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also laid out a sharp economic and strategic roadmap at the India-EU Business Forum held on the sidelines of the India-EU Summit and co-chaired with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Pitching the proposed free trade agreement as a growth multiplier, the Prime Minister underlined opportunities for trade, jobs and resilient supply chains between India and the European Union. Here's more in this report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired the India-EU Business Forum along with President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen in New Delhi on Tuesday. Addressing global business leaders, the Prime Minister said that the proposed India-EU Free Trade Agreement will unlock seamless access to European markets for India's labor-intensive sectors.
इससे भारत के लेबर इंटेंसिव उत्पादों को यूरोपियन यूनियन मार्केट में इजी एक्सेस मिलेगा। इसमें विशेष तौर पर टेक्सटाइल, जेम्स एंड ज्वेलरी, ऑटो पार्ट्स और इंजीनियरिंग गुड्स शामिल हैं। फ्रूट्स, वेजिटेबल्स, प्रोसेस्ड फूड और मरीन प्रोडक्ट्स उसमें नए अवसर बनेंगे। इसका सीधा लाभ हमारे किसानों को, हमारे मछुआरों को मिलेगा। हमारे सर्विस सेक्टर को भी इससे फायदा होगा।
Prime Minister Modi noted that trade, technology, and critical minerals are increasingly being weaponized globally, calling for India and the EU to jointly de-risk supply chains and reduce external dependencies.
आज विश्व में व्यापार, टेक्नोलॉजी और क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स को वेपनाइज किया जा रहा है। हमें साथ मिलकर अपनी निर्भरताओं को डी रिस्क करने की आवश्यकता है।
The India-EU Business Forum brought together three leaders from both sides, with discussions underscoring the growing depth and strategic maturity of the India-EU economic partnership across sectors.
The business forum comes at a timely moment, straight in the wake of the completion of negotiations of the India-EU FTA, because we will need the businesses on the two sides to quickly translate the intention of the FTA into concrete outcomes.
The India-EU Business Forum signaled a shift toward a more integrated and de-risked economic partnership, positioning India and the EU as trusted partners in trade, technology, and global supply chains. Bureau Report, DD India.
And moving on, the budget session of Indian Parliament will commence on Wednesday with the address of President Droupadi Murmu to the joint sitting of members of both the houses. The first phase is scheduled from January 28 to February 13th, while the second phase will run from March 9 to April 2nd. The session will feature 30 sittings, with the Union Budget 2026-27 being presented on the 1st of February in the lower house. Earlier, the government on Tuesday convened an all-party meeting and appealed for cooperation for smooth functioning of both the houses of Parliament. Speaking to the media after the meeting, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister said the first part of the budget session will have motion of thanks on President's address. Later, discussion on budget will be held in both the houses. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address the annual NCC PM rally at the Cariappa Parade Ground in Delhi. The NCC PM rally will mark the grand culmination of the month-long NCC Republic Day Camp 2026. The camp witnessed the participation of 2,406 NCC cadets from across the country, including 898 girl cadets. The rally will also see the participation of 207 youth and officers from 21 foreign countries. The theme of this year's rally is Rashtrapati Kartavya Nishtha Yuva, reflecting the spirit of duty, discipline, and national commitment among India's youth. On the occasion, a vibrant cultural program will be presented by NCC cadets, members of Rashtriya Rangshala and National Service Scheme, showcasing their role in nation building, social service, and character development. Bureau Report, DD India. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. The 25th edition of Bharat Rang Mahotsav 2026 was inaugurated at the National School of Drama in New Delhi, marking a major celebration of theatre and performing arts. The festival brings together India's diverse traditions and artistic expressions on one platform. Speaking at the inauguration, Culture and Tourism Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat said the event helps showcase India's rich cultural heritage and has the potential to reshape global perceptions of the nation's art and culture. India's western state of Odisha's Gopalpur Beach Festival is drawing global attention with powerful sand art by Padma Shri awardee Sudarshan Patnaik. A 20-foot helmet sculpture made from 100 real helmets promotes road safety, while an 80-foot fish made of plastic waste highlights marine pollution. The installations use art to spread strong messages on safety and environmental protection. And still to come on DD India News Hour. US announces major multi-day Air Force exercise in West Asia as military presence expands. Russian drone strike hits passenger train in Ukraine. Zelensky calls it terrorism. And the nominations for the 79th British Academy Film Awards were announced in London, spotlighting top films of the year.
Union Budget 2026-27 is round the corner and the Indian industry has a wish list.
4 large buckets that we have looked at are essentially self-reliance. Support that could be provided to the exports is the second one. The continuity of the factor market reforms, ease of doing business again, something which is being pursued by the government but accelerated further.
On MSMEs, would you recommend any greater allocation considering more than 45% to Indian exports?
This whole ease of doing business is largely aimed at how we can give a little more room for MSMEs to breathe and to be able to operate more easily. There is a talent which is sitting within the private sector, which is what need to be really combined.
Coming to the budget income tax slabs, has FICCI or Indian industry recommended any sort of tweaking there?
So I think a lot has been done last year. Income tax slabs as well as the GST slabs have been significantly rationalized, and I think it's need to now see how that converts into greater demand and hence into greater capital formation.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khuranan. Moving on, demonstrators gathered inside the Minnesota state capitol to protest the deployment of federal agents carrying out the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, with demonstrators urging that officials should handle immigration without harming the community. Now, meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said he would de-escalate a little bit in Minneapolis after the fatal shootings of 2 civilians sparked national outrage. Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, met city and state officials as the administration attempted damage control following the killing of 37-year-old nurse Alex Pretty. Now, Trump acknowledged that Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino, now expected to leave Minneapolis, may have worsened the tensions. Calls for independent investigations and a reduction of federal forces have grown, while Democrats warn the violence betrays core American values. Protest and public criticism continue to mount as concern spreads nationwide.
Tom Homan, as you know, is in Minnesota now. He's meeting with the governor, and he's meeting with the mayor, I think, later. And I hear that's all going very well. Well, you know, we're doing a big investigation. I want to see the investigation. I'm going to be watching over it. I want a very honorable and honest investigation. I have to see it myself.
And for more on the situation, we are joined by Akshay Dongre. Well, Akshay, with President Trump now softening his tone and saying he will de-escalate a little bit and key federal agents said to leave Minneapolis now, how might this change affect the broader federal immigration enforcement strategy, especially as Minnesota officials push for more agents to be withdrawn, while Trump adding that it was not a pullback?
Well, absolutely, it is going to impact the sort of narrative that Donald Trump has been trying to build, and especially, sending federal agents, sending ICE agents into your own state is not exactly a border control measure in any sense. You're acting against your own people. It's not the first killing that has taken place by the ICE agents. Earlier, also, we have seen similar kind of shootings of U.S. citizens in their own states as far as the ICE agents are concerned. And what we are seeing is a trend now, Lipakshi, growing that, these agents will come into an area. And obviously, they're working under duress, they're working under stress as well. However, pulling gun off your holster and shooting them, shooting people who are even resisting arrest is no option. There are other measures. You can handcuff people, you can tase them, you can do other measures to contain them. But killing them in cold blood is nothing but a murder. And that is why we are seeing that one of the core issues of Donald Trump, that was the border control and acting against the immigrants, especially the illegal immigrants, there is now in a back foot because of the killing of especially Alex Pretty, who was a nurse in Minneapolis. So the situation has sort of gone quite bad for Donald Trump as far as his policy is concerned, because it's now has become an issue of not only immigrants but also that the ICE agents are going to kill anyone who resists them, even if they are a US citizen. And that perhaps is the reason why it has caused such a massive uproar.
All right. As you mentioned, as calls, of course, grow for the independent investigation into the fatal shootings, including that of Alex Pretty, what kind of pressure does this put on the Trump administration, one, and Congress to improve oversight and accountability of the federal immigration enforcement operations?
Well, see, all of these measures are being taken in keeping one of the major things into account, that is going to be the midterm elections. And obviously, if the policies that you are implementing they are not going down well with the people, they are not going down well with the voters, then any government is going to will be forced to withdraw those policies. Otherwise, they will not remain for long. And that is what is happening with the sort of action that Donald Trump is taking against the immigrants. Because if you look at it this way, this entire policy of acting against immigrants, illegal immigrants and illegal aliens from getting into US borders is being done to please his voters, to please his MAGA base, who have been calling for the illegals to be deported, and that perhaps has been one of the core agendas of Donald Trump. But if you look at it this way, that the kind of action that has been taken is not only proving to be ineffective against deportations, because the numbers are out that far greater numbers of deportations happened under the Trump administration,
Right.
Under the Obama administration and the Joe Biden administration, and that perhaps is not going down well with the voters as well, and the midterms are near. So Donald Trump, you can say, is forced to de-escalate. Otherwise, the situation can get worse, not only on the ground, but also for his voter base that have been supportive of his ideas so long.
Absolutely. The situation can definitely get worse. But on the other hand, Akshay, also the turmoil could even result in a fresh US government shutdown, with Democrats also threatening to block approval of the routine spending bills up for votes in the Senate later this week. How do you see that?
Well, that's also true, because the shutdown remains on cards. But a bigger threat rather is a widespread protest spreading across the country. The people getting together, getting in large form of protests, and then these ICE agents can do what they have been doing. If there is a large number of resistance, these kind of incidents of shooting of their own citizens can become even more widespread, and something that the US is accusing Iran of. They can themselves be found guilty of doing it, suppressing these kind of protests. So it seems that this was the only logical solution to de-escalate, and in the future, the Trump administration will have to come up with more sort of sensitive policies towards implementing these border control measures.
All right, Akshay, thank you so much for all that analysis. And moving on, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said there is almost nothing normal about dealing with the United States. Speaking in Parliament, Mark Carney responded to questions on whether trade negotiations with Washington remain cordial, saying there is currently nothing normal about relations with the United States. He made the remarks after returning to Ottawa from the World Economic Forum, where he said the US-led rules-based international order is facing a rupture. And the United States on Tuesday announced a major multi-day Air Force exercise in the West Asia. The announcement came a day after the U.S. military said the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group had arrived in the West Asia, boosting American firepower in the region. Now, according to the U.S. Air Force component of Central Command, the exercise will demonstrate the ability to deploy, disperse, and sustain combat air power across the West Asia. No date or exact location for the exercise were released. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Tuesday that Israel is focusing on disarming Hamas and demilitarizing Gaza weapons and tunnels following the return of the last hostage from the territory.
Now we are focused on completing the two remaining tasks, disarming Hamas and clearing Gaza of weapons and tunnels.
Well, a Russian drone strike hit a passenger train in Ukraine's northeastern region, killing 5 people, according to the prosecutors. The attack set several train carriages on fire near a village, with visuals showing burning coaches along a snow-covered railway line. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky denounced the strike as an act of terrorism and called for intensified pressure on Moscow. The train strike came hours after overnight drone attacks on the southern city of Odessa, where 3 people were killed and at least 25 others wounded. Kharkiv's city's mayor informed around 40% of households were left without electricity following combined missile and drone strikes. Now, meanwhile, Ukraine's Air Force said Russian troops had launched 165 drones overnight, where 135 of them were neutralized by air defenses. The latest strikes came ahead of another round of U.S. brokered talks between Russian and Ukrainian officials. Following this, Ukraine is urging its allies, particularly the U.S., to step up pressure on Moscow, saying lasting peace would require accountability and strong security guarantees. And conservative politician and businessman Nasri Aspura was sworn in as President of Honduras on Tuesday. Aspura has pledged to fight poverty, corruption and crime and to revive the economy of the nation. Now, Aspura was inaugurated after months of electoral uncertainty in the country, fueled by a last-minute endorsement from U.S. President Donald Trump, challenges in the vote counting process, and a narrow victory of 26,000 votes over centrist candidate Salvador Nasrallah. And news from the world of entertainment now. The nominations for the 79th British Academy Film Awards, or the BAFTAs, were announced in London on Tuesday amidst the ongoing awards season to honour the best of cinema of 2025. The offbeat thriller One Battle After Another earned 14 nominations, including for Best Film, while vampire-infused horror Sinners followed closely with 13 nods. Both films also dominate the Oscars shortlist, with Sinners taking a record 16 nominations and One Battle After Another earning 13 nods. Other contenders for Best Film include Hamnet, Marty Supreme, and the Norwegian dramatic Sentimental Value. BAFTA CEO Jane Millichip praised this year's selection for bolder storytelling and unique perspectives, highlighting a mix of intense political dramas and intimate personal films. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world today. Emotional support dogs are greeting passengers at Felipe Angeles International Airport in Mexico, helping ease stress and anxiety among the travelers. The program, launched in November in coordination with the National Guard, aims to provide calm and comfort to passengers as they move through the airport. Hundreds of people in Lerwick, Scotland, marched through the streets carrying flaming torches to mark the ancient Viking festival of Up-Hela-A. Leaders of the procession dressed as Vikings, while crowds followed in colourful costumes. The festival, held for over 140 years in its modern form, traces its roots back more than 12 centuries to rituals marking the sun's return after the winter solstice. And still to come on DD India Newshour. Thousands rally in Belgrade as student-led protest against corruption and President Vučić intensify. South Sudan calls for ceasefire as clashes in Jonglei threaten fragile 2018 peace agreement. And Storm Chandra hits Ireland, Northern Ireland, causing flooding and power outages. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Kuran, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. President Droupadi Murmu hosted a banquet for EU leaders at Rashtrapati Bhavan on Tuesday, expressed confidence in India-EU free trade agreement. Budget session of Indian Parliament to commence today. President Murmu to address joint sitting of members of both the houses. US President Trump said he would de-escalate a little bit in Minneapolis after criticism over the fatal shootings of 2 civilians. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman calls Iranian President Pezeshkian, assures the Gulf Kingdom will not allow its territory to be used for any military actions against Iran. And in sports, India series dominance in 4th T20 International against New Zealand in Visakhapatnam. And moving on, a South Korean court will pass judgment on Wednesday in the case of former First Lady Kim Ko-eun-hee in alleged stock fraud and corruption case. The prosecution team last month sought a 15-year prison sentence for the former First Lady and also requested 2 billion won in fines and a 940 million won penalty to recoup unlawful gains. Prosecutors alleged Kim reaped about 800 million won of profits in 2010 and 2011 by participating in illegal stock manipulation. She was also accused of accepting lavish bribes from businesses and politicians totaling over $200,000, including 2 Chanel bags and a Graf necklace from the Unification Church as part of its efforts to win influence. The former First Lady has denied all the charges, claiming the allegations were deeply unjust in her final testimony last month. But she had also apologized for causing trouble despite being a person of no importance. A North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, will unveil plans to bolster his nuclear forces at an upcoming ruling party meeting. The landmark Congress of North Korea's ruling Workers' Party is expected in the coming weeks and is its first in 5 years. The North Korean leader on Tuesday oversaw a test of the large-caliber multiple rocket launch system and described the launch as a serious threat to forces trying to provoke the nation. Officials said the test is part of a policy to build reliable offensive capabilities and deterrence to prevent any attempt to spark an armed conflict. South Korea and Japan condemned the launch, which involved possible short-range ballistic missiles fired towards the Sea of Japan. And Venezuelan interim president Delcy Rodriguez said Tuesday that her government maintains open, respectful and cordial communication with U.S. President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio as both sides seek to develop a bilateral working agenda. Speaking during a visit to a hospital in Caracas, Rodriguez echoed Trump's remarks that dialogue channels have been established with U.S. officials based on mutual respect and courtesy. She added that discussions with Rubio are focused on setting up a framework for cooperation. Also, Rodriguez said the government is taking steps to recover Venezuelan assets frozen overseas, noting that any funds unlocked would be allocated to priority sectors such as healthcare, electricity, natural gas and other social programs aimed at improving public services.
Yo reafirmo lo que ha dicho el presidente Donald Trump.
I reaffirm what President Donald Trump has said, that we have established channels of communication, respect and courtesy, both with the President of the United States and with Secretary Rubio, with whom we are establishing a working agenda.
Y que estamos hoy.
And Colombian President Gustavo Petro said on Tuesday that Venezuela's Maduro should be sent back from U.S. custody to face trial in his home country, insisting Venezuelan courts, not U.S. authorities, should handle his prosecution. Well, Maduro, who was captured by American forces in early January operation and is now being held in New York on drug trafficking and related charges, has appeared in a U.S. federal court and pleaded not guilty. Petro's comments come just before his first planned visit to Washington, where he's set to meet U.S. President Donald Trump amid historically strained relations between Bogota and Washington.
Bombardear Caracas.
They must return him and allow a Venezuelan court to judge him, not a US one. Why? because Latin American civilization is different from the Anglo-Saxon European one.
Maduro.
Well, Colombia announced on Tuesday a 30% tariff on 23 Ecuadorian products in response to its neighboring country's hike in oil transport fees, while signaling willingness to engage in dialogue to ease tensions. Now, Ecuador raised the cost of transporting Colombian crude through its trans-Ecuadorian pipeline system from about $2.50 to over $30 per barrel, Colombian authorities said. The move deepens a growing trade dispute between the two Andean nations. Earlier, Ecuador announced a 30% security surcharge on Colombian imports, citing insufficient cooperation against cross-border drug trafficking. Colombia responded with reciprocal tariffs and suspended electricity exports. The dispute also affects a 2024 agreement under which Ecuador's Petro-Ecuador transport Colombian crude via the Osla and Sot pipelines carrying more than 13,000 barrels per day at previously agreed lower rates. And thousands of protesters took to the streets of Belgrade on Tuesday in the latest round of student-led demonstrations opposing corruption and the government of Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić. Marchers chanted slogans against Vučić and carried banners and flags as they moved through the capital. Some demonstrators also displayed Danish and Greenlandic flags, referencing a recent dispute involving the U.S. administration and European nations after President Donald Trump called for U.S. control over Denmark's Arctic territory. Serbia has seen recurring protests for more than a year, sparked by public anger over the deaths of 16 people in the collapse of a railway station roof in Novi Sad in November 2024. An incident widely blamed on corruption and negligence. The student-driven movement is calling for sweeping reforms, accountability, and the holding of new national elections. And South Sudan's government on Tuesday urged opposition forces to stop fighting as clashes in Jonglei state intensified, raising concerns about the stability of a 2018 peace agreement that ended a 5-year civil war. The clashes involve government forces and fighters loyal to the Sudan People's Liberation Army in opposition. The fighting has led to mass displacement and is occurring on a scale not seen since 2017. Well, South Sudan's military on Sunday ordered civilians, United Nations personnel and aid workers to evacuate 3 counties in Jonglei ahead of the operation against opposition forces. And Storm Chandra brought flooding to parts of Ireland and Northern Ireland as strong winds and heavy rain swept across the island. More than 15,000 homes and businesses lost power on both sides of the border, with weather warnings in place in both jurisdictions. Also, several roads and colleges were closed while public transport services were disrupted. Belfast's Lanyon Place rail station was shut due to the conditions, and Irish Rail suspended services between Enniscorthy and Wexford. And after a year-long investigation, the National Transportation Safety Board blamed multiple system-wide failures for the midday collision of an Army Black Hawk helicopter and American Airlines regional jet that killed 67 people. NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy, in her opening remarks, said a deep underlying systemic failures aligned to create the conditions that led to the devastating tragedy. Investigators laid out their findings in a meeting at the NTSB's headquarters, compiling a long list of factors that likely contributed to the deadliest U.S. aviation disaster in decades. According to the investigators, an instrument failure in the Army helicopter, which likely made the pilots think they were flying 100 feet lower than they were. The NTSB report also described a chaotic situation in the air traffic control tower and incomplete communications between the local controller and the helicopter pilots. Well, Nepal organized a conference on Tuesday on decarbonizing the economy to mark the International Clean Energy Day. During the conference, government officials said they are working to strengthen laws and policies to expand the use of green energy and suggested arrangements needed to achieve the national target of net zero carbon emissions by 2045. Nepal still relies heavily on imported fuel, accounting for about 60% of total energy consumption. Also, authorities called for more private sector involvement, citing available financing for green investment. Also, the officials said that Nepal's renewable energy production is increasing with new solar plants, charging stations and solar-powered pumps planned. And on to some weather news now. An active western disturbance continues to impact northern and central India, bringing rain, fog and cold wave and thunderstorm activity across several states. Light rainfall is likely at many places in Himachal Pradesh and Punjab. Cold wave conditions are expected in both states, while dense fog may prevail in isolated pockets of Punjab. While parts of Haryana and the national capital Delhi are likely to receive light rainfall, cold wave conditions are also expected to affect the region. Thunderstorm and lightning activity is likely over Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh and Bihar. Dense to very dense fog prevails in isolated pockets of West Uttar Pradesh. And still to come in DD India News Hour. Amazon to close US Amazon Go and Fresh stores to expand Whole Foods and online grocery delivery. India dominates Zimbabwe by 205 runs in Under-19 World Cup Super Sixes opener. And Alcaraz sweeps into maiden Australian Open semis, brushes aside Alex de Minaur in quarters.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you.
Exactly what to say that you're...
You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome to DD India, where a billion voices unite, connecting viewers to the stories that matter. India is not just another news channel. It's the international channel that puts the spotlight on the global south, bringing you stories from the heart of emerging economies, dynamic cultures, and transformative voices. As the international news channel of India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati, DD India delivers high-quality content from every corner of the globe, focusing on the stories that shape our future. We don't just report news. We connect you to India's voice in the global narrative. From current affairs to culture, from economic growth to sustainable development, and the ever-evolving world order. DD India gives you a comprehensive view of the world around us. Stay connected, stay informed, and embrace the stories that shape our lives. DD India. India's voice to the world. Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium, we'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
The land of forests, nature's hidden jewel. Jharkhand is a traveler's paradise. Get ready for a sensory extravaganza, complete with ancient traditions and world-class lifestyles, breathtaking scenic beauties and heart-stopping adventure. Thousands of years of faith preserved in magnificent.
Welcome back. You're watching TT India News. I'm Lipakshi Khuranan. On to some business news now. Amazon said on Tuesday it would shutter its Amazon Go and Amazon Fresh physical stores in the United States and convert a number of those locations into Whole Food Market as part of a broader push to strengthen its grocery business. The strategy supports Amazon's plan to open more than 100 new Whole Food stores in the coming years, positioning the premium brand to better compete with rivals like Walmart, Kroger, and delivery platforms such as Instacart. While Amazon Fresh stores, known for checkout-free shopping, will shut physically, the service will continue online in select areas. Amazon will also expand same-day delivery to additional U.S. cities, responding to rising demand for grocery essentials from its 150 million annual grocery shoppers. Well, the company said the changes aim to focus investments on high-growth areas and will assist affected employees in finding new roles within Amazon. Well, you're watching TT India News. Our time now. First, some sports news. India-New Zealand gear up for the 4th T20 International in Visakhapatnam, with the host aiming to extend their dominance after taking a strong lead in the series. Well, Sanju Samson and Abhishek Sharma's form at the top will be crucial, while Jasprit Bumrah will continue to spearhead the bowling attack. Well, New Zealand, led by Mitchell Santher, will look to bounce back and keep the contest alive. With the T20 World Cup approaching, both sides see this clash as vital preparation. And India crushed Zimbabwe by 205 runs in their opening Super Sixes clash at the Under-19 World Cup in Bulawayo, riding on Vihan Malhotra's unbeaten century and 50s from Abhigyan Kundu and Vaibhav Suryavanshi. India piled up 353 before bowling Zimbabwe out for 148 with 12.2 overs left. R. Sampreesh and debutant Uddhav Mohan shared 5 wickets, while skipper Ayush Matre claimed 3 late strikes as Zimbabwe collapsed, losing their last 6 wickets for just 6 runs. Earlier, Suryavanshi's 24-ball 50 and Malhotra's composed ton set the tone, supported by Kundu's fluent 61. India's dominance underlined their title credentials as Zimbabwe faltered despite Chiwala's fighting half-century. And India's Ashmita Chaliha stormed into the women's single main draw at the Thailand Masters Super 300 in Bangkok with 2 hard-fought qualification wins on Tuesday. The 26-year-old from Guwahati, part of India's gold-winning squad at the 2024 Asia Cup Championship, defeated Chinese Taipei's Hang Yi-ting 21-15, 21-20, 12-21, 21-12 in 42 minutes before overcoming Korea's Kim Joo-yeon 21-11, 10-21, 21-16 in 45 minutes. Chaliha will now face compatriot Devika Sihag in the main draw. Elsewhere, Shreya Lele, M. Jaglan and L. Jaglan, P. Krishnamurti Roy and S. Pratik K and the women's double pair Ashwini Bhatt and Shikha Gautam all bowed out in qualification matches. And in tennis, world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz swept into his maiden Australian Open semi-final and set up a clash with Alexander Zverev. The 22-year-old brushed aside home hope Alex de Minaur 7-5, 6-2, 6-1, and he's yet to drop a set. The Australian Open is the only Grand Slam that Alcaraz has not won. Should he beat Zverev and then win Sunday's final, he would surpass compatriot and legend Rafael Nadal as the youngest man to win all 4 majors. Nadal was 24 when he did it. And Alina Svitolina stormed into her first Australian Open semi-final with a commanding win over Coco Gauff in just 59 minutes on Rod Laver Arena. The Ukrainian 12th seed on a 10-match winning streak after her Auckland triumph punished Gauff's service with 5 double faults and 4 breaks. At 31, Svitolina keeps alive a dream of a maiden Grand Slam title and a return to the world's top 10 after maternity leave. Gauff, chasing her third major, struggled to find rhythm despite re-stringing rackets under the closed roof. Svitolina now faces top seed Aryna Sabalenka in a blockbuster semi-final. Well, the Kerala Blasters have signed a Spanish midfielder, Matias Hernandez from Gokulam Kerala FC ahead of the Indian Super League 2025-26. Hernandez, a 186 centimeter tall defence midfielder, replaces Dusan Legata, who left the club amid uncertainty around the league. He becomes the Blasters' third foreign recruit this season, joining Marlon Roos Trujillo and Kevin Yoke. Known for his aerial strength and ability to act as an extra centre-back, Hernandez adds discipline and clarity to the midfield. The ISL kicks off February 14th with Blasters facing Mohan Bagan in Kolkata. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News App, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News App.